2009. It's now 20 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Millions of people crossed the border to be reunited with their families. The border between East and West was now gone, and everyone could again live equal.
If they work in East Germany, they get about 6 euros per hour, and if they work in West Germany, the same kind of job, the same kind of position, the same kind of company, they get 7.50 euros an hour.
The big question is, why is the wall still existing mentally in people's minds?
Mr. Svensson is my name. I've been working here as a guide for Scandinavian groups, mainly then for Swedish group, but also then for some English-speaking groups then for about 7-8 months then in this museum, and before then I've studied the relations between East Germany and Sweden then particularly as the country.
Even now, 20 years after the fall of the wall, there's a significant difference in the living standard between East and West. Why did it end up like this?
What happened then in East Germany, everything was then owned by the state, and then private investors came from West Germany then to East Germany, and what happened was that they found that many factories and so on weren't profitable. They didn't have the chance to keep up with Western standards, so they were then being closed. Or if they were successful, it also happened that many were then being brought to West Germany, so that's also why many working places then disappeared. So that's also why you have an unemployment rate in many East German countries, Bundesländer, so to say, of almost an average of 20%. It's always then complicated with salaries, but if you also look at the living standards, of course, if you live in Munich, for example, München, then it's an expensive city to live there. I guess like in Copenhagen, you have to pay about 40% of the income then in rent, no? Because it's difficult to get an apartment. But as if you go to a city in East Germany, to Berlin, it's relatively cheap still. If you go to Leipzig or something like that, you can still rent an apartment still. But they also calculate on how much people have as netto income. Still it shows then, of course, in Munich that people have more to do money to buy a car, to travel and so on, than they have then, for example, in Leipzig then and so on.
Don't you think that somehow the political system keeps this divided thing, because there's a difference in the salary whether you're from East or West? Why don't they say now everyone gets the same minimum wage?
Making a minimum salary, that's one of the high up priorities then for this political party, Die Linke. They don't want anyone to work for less than 7.50 euros. But now there was an election now just a few weeks ago in Germany, then you have CDU, FDP, who are afraid that if we have this minimum salary, that will lead to an unemployment, because then the companies won't be able to afford to have that many employees. But that's the big task, I would say, for the politicians in Germany today, to also to make East Germany, to make that live up again, and prevent young people from leaving East Germany after they're finished with their education and at university.
Besides the physical difference, the social difference is still stuck in people's mind. Why is it so hard for people to get rid of this mental border?
You've got to think of the people who are now 50, 60 years old. They were born then, they grew up in this system, they learned, they got their education in this system. Of course it's difficult for them then to adapt, even though it's 20 years ago. Actually, it's quite interesting, even today, like you mentioned, 20 years after the fall of the wall. If you have polls in the Zeitung, in the newspaper, then Zeitung is the German way, in the newspaper, then you have then what does the people in East Germany say, what does the people in West Germany say. So it's still then divided between East and West. And even once again, older people, they still have this mental kind of borders within, and also coming from West. Many of them haven't been to East Germany. They also have this picture of how the East Germans are, and the East Germans have this picture of how the West Germans are then. So they think that the East Germans think that the West Germans are arrogant. They only think about money, and time is really important. They're always stressed, business, money, and so on. The West Germans think that the East Germans are lazy, they're unemployed, they don't want to work, they don't want to do anything. But also it's difficult to say how much of this is just something that people say, and how much is then reality.
But the reality is that the prejudice among people is still present today, and even on the job this sometimes causes conflicts.
People who work for the police, for example, when they tell them from East Germany, they tell that they are from East Germany, it happens that also their colleagues then at the beginning then react, okay, automatically they start thinking, what did he do before the war? Was he involved with any Stasi contacts? Stasi? Did he work as an EM or something like that?
Now, after 20 years, the difference is still strong socially and mentally. How are the Germans gonna move on, and is there a solution out of these problems? Will the younger generation be able to erase this border?
If you look at the young people now, then 20 years, quite a long time of them, many of them have graduated, they've started to study at the university. They think of it as one Germany, but I'm sure it's going to take another 20 years.